I'm going to call to order the special meeting of the Playground Working Group of the Darien Parks and Recreation Commission, 9:15 a.m. Wednesday, October 19th, 2022. The first item on the agenda is to approve the meeting minutes for September 29th and October 6th, 2022. Do we have any changes to that? Everybody's good with the minutes from those two dates? Thank you very much, Pam, for putting those together. Do we need to actually vote? I guess it seems like we're in approval, or should we do a motion for that? Or Patty, go ahead. You need to go.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Patty, make a motion.
Make a motion
Can I have
to
a
approve
second?
for both of those.
Ruth?
Yeah, I can make it. Sure.
Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I guess it was unanimous. Thanks, Pam.
You're
We're going
welcome.
to go to the next item on the agenda, which is discuss and choose final McGuan playground designs, including Q&A by vendors. Right now we have Summer online so that we can ask her any questions we have before we go into discussion. I've already thanked Summer for a great revise on this plan, and let's just jump into questions so we could save time. Go ahead, guys.
Shall I share my screen first? I'll put up her
Sure.
overall view. Let's see, I'm gonna get let's put up that one. Everybody see that? Oh, are you guys seeing that or not?
Yes, we are seeing it, Pam.
Yes.
It should have been the one that was attached in the main email. It's okay if everyone already saw it. It just has swings.
I don't know why. Are you? Huh?
She's looking for the one that shows the whole thing. But Pam, we all have it printed out in front of us also, so.
That's okay.
Yeah, let's just jump in with questions right away.
Okay.
Well, if nobody's going to jump in, I had a question about the musical elements. Can you talk a little bit more about the warranty on those items? And because I feel like they're going to be really well loved. One of them has a string that attaches, I guess, the pieces that drum on it. Can you, in other spaces you've used it, how resilient are they?
Yeah, that's a very fair question, Susan, and a good observation. So the mallets are going to be the biggest, like they're sort of like swing links that you need to change every once in a while, the pins in the swing. Those mallets are going to need to be replaced, and it really depends on the community and how often they're getting used. We have run into those being vandalized in certain neighborhoods, which I don't anticipate being the case here, but the warranty on them is 2 years. So they are made for outdoor use. It's outdoor equipment. It's very durable, but the mallets are something that if you have a determined vandal, those can get ripped off if somebody's really focused on that, unfortunately.
Does your warranty cover vandalism?
No. And that would be standard across the industry.
Summer, but like anything, those mallets can be replaced, correct?
Oh yeah, and they're very simple to replace also. And I don't want to paint the wrong picture. I just prefer to be extremely honest with the group of like, that is something that you're going to need to consider. They are relatively inexpensive. I don't have the exact cost off the top of my head, but I know that we've sent them out as a courtesy to some, school in Bridgeport. So I know that they can, like I said, with a determined vandal.
Do you have a ballpark figure on what they would be? Because if they're not covered, and I get that, especially I understand that.
So I don't off the top of my head, I would estimate around $100.
And let's keep in mind, like for instance, at Cherry Lawn, we are continuously changing out all the climbing rings, like they're called rungs actually. So that is a typical thing that we continually do to maintain some of the pieces.
Yeah, but actually, I'm glad that came up because that is something that I didn't talk to you guys about. When you're considering compound versus creative recreation, the quality of the materials is significantly different. Our decking, can everyone see this? This is high pressure laminate made out of post-consumer recycled materials. You're never going to have that peeling back.
I think summer is frozen. Is everybody seeing that? Or is it
Yeah,
me?
I'm not hearing her anymore.
Yeah,
Looks like she's trying to
frozen
come back on.
Okay.
Oh, that's too bad.
If any of you, I think she offered another option with the play structure. So if you guys, if you guys
I'll put
have
that
any
up.
questions about that, can you just put it, ask Summer about it? Because I guess one of my issues is now looking at the height of, the structures and seeing how, they'll look in the kind of that airspace. So, but you guys, if you have other thoughts, I'd like to hear those too. Hopefully she'll jump back in when she can get some.
I can jump in. I like the second design that she had added. Can you guys hear me? I feel like it's echoing. You guys hear me? I like the one that she added with the using the net. I also like the idea there's a wider plank one that I saw on their website. I think we just run into the fact that it's a smaller, if kids are, it's just a smaller area because there's one climbing structure if we went with that one. So like the little kids are gonna also, I don't know how they would do on the net. That was my only fear. If they're the little kids and they're the 2 to 5 year olds, can they go over that net, or is that, would they get hurt?
That's a good.
I think that was our big thing, is knowing that the little kids are going to want that climbing structure. I think our biggest fear was, since there's one climbing structure, how are we going to keep the little guys off of it?
Okay, Summer's back.
Everyone, I'm back. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. So I was just sharing, these are recycled material as well, also have a lifetime warranty. And then your posts on that 2 to 5, this is recycled textiles. So phenomenal quality of equipment. Also, the community can take comfort in knowing that you're really contributing to the green initiative. And we can give you a breakdown of how many milk jugs this is, for example.
What's the age range for the climbing structure? I guess the net thing, and also the largest structure that you also offered as an option.
Yep. So both of those are 5 to 12.
And I'd like to comment on, the 2 to 5 year olds playing on, the playground, and the worry of those going on the bigger structure. That's going to happen in any playground. So as parents, we just have to be, right on top of that. So you either are going to allow your child to try it and you're going to be right there, or you're going to just, make sure that they don't go on that structure. That for any playground that has 2 different elements of 2 different age groups, that's what we have to do.
I think Ruth's point was a little bit different. It was that, is that particular structure less safe? At least that's how I understood it. Because it's a little bit different than just a normal sort of slide and stairs. So it's a cool structure, totally cool. That climbing structure, loved it, loved the design, but is that a little bit less safe than some other climbing structures that are more standard, the slide and ladders? And that was a question more for you, Summer. Have you heard that or not?
No, it's all about having, children need perceived risk. They need challenge. And in the absence of that, that's when they start getting in trouble and climbing up the fence, especially I know you guys are at a ballpark, like that's when they're doing things that they're not supposed to, or that's why they climb up the slide, because in the absence of challenge, they're going to find their own. You could do a complete post and platform structure with slides, but that's when, and I know as parents, we've all experienced this, like that's when you go and kids are climbing on the roofs. So I really think that it's all about doing our best. I mean, in a community park like this, to have a wide variety of different play types, different play components, ground level play, as well as elevated play. And then there is a certain amount of just parental supervision and responsibility that's needed there. So for me, I would look at it as for the longer portion of your child's life, they're going to be in that 5 to 12 range. So you need to have some sort of structure that would be somewhat scary for a 2-year-old, or maybe wouldn't be appropriate for them. Because if you don't have that, you're not going to have something for your 10-year-olds. I mean, it's hard to design. Everything is going to be perfect for every kid. So, I would be comfortable bringing my kids on this. And I have a 4-year-old who would still be in that 2 to 5 age group. A 2-year-old, they're on the young side, they're going to need a lot of supervision. And honestly, they wouldn't be on that climber. They would walk over to it and shake the ropes, and that would be the extent of them climbing on that.
For the climber, Summer, again, about the material itself, since I don't know if we have anything in town that has that type of material currently. What's the warranty on that, and how's it been holding up in your other locations?
Yep, it's phenomenal. So Compion was the company that brought the netting equipment to the marketplace back in the 70s. Our equipment does not need retentioning because of the quality of it. You would need a Sawzall out at the site in order to cut through. So if we were in person, I would pass around these samples to show you, but how can I show you guys? Do you see that there's steel? There's an induction process that we go through, that these net structures actually have like stainless steel running through them. So the warranty on this is 10 years. But openly, we have structures that have been in place for 20 plus years, and they're still in great condition. The only thing, over time, we've had to add additional ropes because the regulations change, but they're actually they're surprisingly a lot safer than people think, because they're built in such a way that the nets are going to catch a child if they are to fall. You can't fall from that highest point to the bottom.
What is the height of that structure?
It's 14 feet and 4 inches. And then I know no one asked, but I just want to address it. Thank you so much for all the feedback. It was super thorough, which was really fabulous. Somebody mentioned somebody had brought up like an additional seesaw that had 3 seats. Please note that the one that's in the design has 4 seats, so it is a multi-person seesaw. There was a lot of other structures that were brought up. I thought that those were phenomenal. The issue is just cost and space. So that's why I did make that change to the bridge, because I'll agree with you that is the most challenging part of that structure. So if you prefer the previous design, that's a change that we can make and still fit within your budget. I hope everyone noticed the playhouse that was in the structure, the design before. That you'll find your 2 to 5-year-olds, they're starting to do parallel play and pretend play. They will flock to that. It's not something that really pops on a rendering, but it will get a ton of use. That's where they're going to play house and, ice cream man or whatever the case. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, the spinner bowl. I know a lot of folks are looking at that and saying like, oh, it's only one kid that's on there. The reason I'm putting that on the design is it's really helpful for children on the autism spectrum, which in today's world is, I think, 1 in 10 or 1 in 7 children. It's like a staggering number. But it's typical children love it as well. And spinning is extremely therapeutic for kids. It's at a very low price point and it has a very tight use zone. So I would encourage you to keep that in the design.
Thank you. That was one of the things in my due diligence that we heard every kid of all ages loved, and that it was, I'm thankful to know that it was inexpensive and that you were able to include it.
Yep. And just to give you another example of the difference between us and Creative Rec, and again, I wish we were together, our bearing, which I'm holding right here, it doesn't mean much to you, I know on a screen, but it's electric motor quality, fully sealed, lifetime lubricated. And that is really critical when you're putting in a playground, that the spinning is going to be that smooth ride. We've all probably been on rides with our kids or whatever, even in your personal life. And there's a big difference in the thrill and the experience based on how smooth it operates. So you want to know that what you're putting in is going to still have that same, the kids are still going to have that same experience, and it's going to last 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Can you define how it's lifetime lubricated? Does that mean you guys come back and lubricate it, once a year, or what does it mean?
No, it's because it's sealed. It's because the unit is sealed. So the industry standard on something like this is a brass bushing, and the difference is that in New England specifically, over time water gets in and it can break down your bearing. And that's where you get like the squeaking. If you've ever been to a playground and you get that, that's why.
Summer, 2 quick questions. The other unit, the traditional playground unit, how tall is that going to be?
Oh, I don't know if I have that one off the top of my head, but I can
And then the
certainly.
second question, since you're going to be looking for that, is for the netting, have you had any issues with, it kind of getting warm because it's steel inside? Since we don't have any shade over that playground, if, would it ever be hard for a child to rip on and play with it because it's full sun there?
No, the only thing the sun's going to do is take away some of the color, but it is UV stabilized material. It's just when it's 30 years old, it's not going to be as vibrant as when you first install it. That's what the sun will do. The only wear that you're going to have is you might see like little tiny fibers on the net, but it doesn't compromise the integrity of the structure. And it's not like, it's so fine. It's tiny little fibers.
Summer, can I follow up on that question? So the steel is inside, the stainless steel, and then it is wrapped in that, and that's what you're saying might decolor over the years, but are not going to break out. We're not going to have a fiber issue. What is that cover made out of?
It's polyester.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap up Summer soon, just so that we have time for our other presenter. Does anybody have any final questions?
I have an important one. Can you talk about supply chain issues? I know we talked about it a while ago, but I need an update because that's important to the selectmen.
Yeah, thank you. That other structure is 10 feet, 2 inches. The monarchy. Yeah, so we have seen a delay this previous year. We added an additional 2 weeks to our lead time. So instead of it being 10 to 12, it's now 12 to 14. And I will tell you that the reason for that has really been a lot on the shipping. Shipping is just a big challenge for us right now because when it's delayed, it's out of our control. That's happening to everyone, really across industries recently, but I take comfort in saying 14 weeks and feeling very confident about that.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Summer, about the drum set in the second and the revised design? It looks like the kids are tapping it with their hands. Have you noticed kids stepping on them like as a balance rock? Like I could see kids using that as something they climb on and jump off of.
So I had that issue at one school because they were installed too low. Otherwise, they're at waist height, and so it's a little bit challenging for kids to get on them. Can teenagers climb on them? Yes. And again, that comes down to supervision of hopefully, they're not intended for that. And it's very obvious they're not intended for that, the way that they're set up. But will kids climb on them? Yes.
And can they withstand their weight if they did climb on them?
We have not had any issues, and I put these on almost every playground just because sensory play is so critical. We have not had any issues with those coming back for any sort of repair. I don't think I've ever done a repair on those drums.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry, can I just
have one other question?
Oh, go ahead. Go.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I just
so
had
we
one
can-
question, just about the, oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Sarah, go ahead. I just had a question about the ground cover. Was it something where I know that these new renderings are just entirely done with the turf? I know that with the price difference of the new equipment that you're proposing, would we still be able to do the pour and play? Because I know your original proposals, you had two, one with turf and one with pour and play. What would we be looking at? Could we stay within budget if we decided to go with this new design, but go with the pour and play option versus the turf? Because I know the turf was a little bit less, correct?
Yeah. Yes, you can.
Thank you.
So I know we have to go soon. Just two questions. So if we can swap out the net climber with the other one and not lose anything else, right? They take up the same space. That's what you had said, Pam, I think in the email.
So
Right? Okay.
just to clarify that, the net climber would be keeping the old design. So thank you for that question. We cannot swap out that net climber for this small 2 to 5 structure. Does everyone understand that? Am I explaining it well? So
You're saying there's
that-
different 2 to 5 structure in both different drawings. They're different ones.
Correct. So the only way that main unit, can I share my screen for a minute? Here. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So here's the third option that we've put together. How do I go back? If you liked this structure, this would be the design we shared last time. So it would be this design.
Okay.
So instead, so you would have a 2 to 5 area. So here's swings, you have your play hut, you have a 4-person springer there in the middle, but this would have that different bridge.
Okay. So we're looking at two different designs. Okay. Got it.
Yep. I just felt like this, and I could be wrong. It's a challenge to not, I'm not with you guys. I don't know everyone's thoughts, but like, to me, this design was fairly close. It seemed like there was decent feedback on it. So if the group really likes this, we can make this work with the bridge.
I think we'd like your 2 to 5, the extra little playground for the smaller kids. I think that's what Sarah was getting at. But I think we're
That
over
little
budget if
house.
we include that. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. It's not just over budget though. You also don't have enough space.
That's what I was wondering. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then sorry, my second question, and this is for Pam. Sorry, in the rendering we were just looking at, the original, we'll call it the original design, you have it as the shape that the playground currently is, the odd shape. And then in the new one, it looks like you did a rectangle, which is, I still don't know if we've decided if we're actually that, which
So
I
this
like.
is the same as well. It's just,
It is. Okay.
it's just a different angle. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Just wanted to confirm that or not. Okay. Perfect. The odd
Summer?
shape is killing.
Can you send the rendering with the new structure and the old design that you gave us? Because I don't think we have it somewhere. Pam, did we ever get it?
No, we didn't create that.
No,
It's quite
the picture
tiny.
you just showed us with
Okay.
the new structure and the old design. If
We
you could
don't
send
have-
it to
She
us.
didn't send us that.
We don't
No.
have this in the new,
don't have it.
in the old rendering.
Oh,
We didn't
oh,
create-
okay. So this would just take over that. Okay, got it. Okay.
It's the same structure except for that thin bridge that was on the unit.
Got
We've
it.
switched to a rope net. My thought
Okay,
was
got
that I heard the feedback on the 2 to 5 that people were worried about that structure, like sitting back and having your kids on that. And so I think changing it to the net.
Okay, got it. Sorry. Thank you so much for clarifying, Summer. Sorry about that.
Can I
I
just
think
ask,
we're at 9:40 now, and we really need to get to our other vendor. If there's something critical now, we should say it, but I'd like to go to our next vendor to make sure that we get, both, questions answered. Anybody?
Just really quick, is there a way, Summer, that I think I truly love that smaller playground that's in the second design with the rope climber for the little kids? Is there a way that could be kept with a different climbing device, or we have to completely say if we keep that one, we have to go with the rope because of sizing? Or is there a way that they can keep a bigger slide for the bigger kids? Because that was my feedback I got was the kids were missing that bigger slide.
So you want a 2 to 5 and a 5 to 12 is what you're saying then, right? You can't make it fit not within the space, not the size that you're talking about, and the budget. Hi, John.
Okay, let's finish off. Sorry, Summer. Thank you so much for your time. We're gonna jump to John now so we can get any questions answered by him. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Summer.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for meeting with us again and your new design. I'm sure our members have some questions, and we look forward to your answers.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for having me.
And I'm going to go ahead and put up the screen of his things, his design. Let's see how quickly I can do this. Oh.
John, I'm going to ask a question while you're putting that up. We asked about supply chain issues last time we met, so I'm just going to ask it again because it's been a little bit. Could you talk about if you're having supply chain delays or not?
So we are still, and it's a combination of not only supply chain issues, but also the capacity of the factory, as with all the grants and things that have kind of entered into the recreation world, sales have increased dramatically. So that, in addition to the supply chain, has pushed out our lead time. So right now, if you were to order a playground today, I wouldn't see it until late spring.
Thank you for
Sorry,
confirming. That's okay.
I'm having
Thank you
issues
for
here. Hold on.
confirming that.
John,
and
just to go back to that, so you're saying if we decide today that you wouldn't get something in stock until late spring, being like what month were you thinking?
It'd be like end of May, June.
Okay, so then realistically, installation and everything would be much past that, right?
It would, I mean, it would take us on a playground this size probably about 10 days to build.
Okay. So our best case scenario, if we decided today, is end of May, June, right? Just to be clear.
Correct.
Okay.
Sometimes I've been told that, they're in the last, I don't know, 9 months, they put a lot of policies and processes in place and have expanded the factory and brought in additional welders and personnel to try to keep up with the demand. So as that kind of works and goes through time, they anticipate all those policies, procedures, and things that they've put in place over the last 9 months will really help shorten the lead time. So, I suspect that as we push closer to spring, those lead times will shorten. And how that affects an order that I would place today, I would hope that it would come out faster, but time will only tell.
John, could you also,
John.
can I just ask this question because it's important, I believe. You also confirmed that everything you do is domestic, so you're not shipping things from overseas. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, everything's manufactured in Monette, Missouri. So
Okay, thank
southwest corner of Missouri.
So
John,
our timing here was to be in April, John, so there's no way you can meet that April timeframe is what you're saying.
I would have to say no. It's not impossible, but I wouldn't count on it. If they move things around or if an order gets canceled, there is a possibility that it would move up. And I can certainly try. I do have a lot of, contacts in the interior, having spent 33 years with Miracle. But I wouldn't want to guarantee that. I wouldn't be comfortable saying something. I just hate to overcommit myself on something that I just can't control.
And I'd like to add, Kathy, that from the very beginning, I always anticipated May because it's warmer for any type of pour. So May was always a target in my mind anyway.
Yeah, but we're hearing June. So.
Yeah, but this is the reality, because we're hearing this across a lot of our structures we're working on throughout town, through Public Works as well.
I wish it was different. I really do. It's we used to manufacture and deliver in 30-day cycles. So, this is something that I've never seen in my career. Hopefully someday we get back to normal real soon.
John, how tall is the tallest structure on the plan?
That is a 4-foot, 10-foot tower. So 10 feet.
So the tall one with that long slide is only 10 feet tall?
Well, that's where you would stand on. So the tallest point is probably 18 feet, 20 feet off the ground. But where you would stand on and then sit down and go down the slide, that's 10 feet tall.
So the roof part that we're assuming kids won't hopefully climb on is what you're saying is 18, but the base where they're standing to go down the slide is 10, correct?
Correct. And then there's climbing components that go from ground, and then they go past the 4-foot deck and then go up to the 10-foot deck. So you can access, really the 10-foot deck two different ways. One through an interior ladder, and the other is from the ground on an exterior ladder or climber. And we were able to get an additional spinner in. Pam had asked me if we could put some other type of spinning device. We make a pirouette, which is a multi-person spinner. And it would go over towards the little green slide and the transfer point. If I think Pam's working on, yes, it would go right there. I sent a rendering late yesterday afternoon, so I'm sure everything was already prepared.
That's a standing spinner, is that correct?
Yeah, so they would stand on it. It sits about 12 inches above the ground. And then, 2, 3, or 4 kids can kind of stand on it and spin together. It's called a pirouette in our catalog.
Thank you.
I know we had asked questions about the panels. Is there, as far as like we saw the Brillo alphabet, was there something, were there some different, I'm sorry, the Braille, my mind was spent. The Braille alphabet on the wall, is there somewhere we can kind of get an idea of other panel options that we might be able to look at? Or can kids reach that from the ground level, or do they have to be up tall? It just looked a little high.
Okay, so yeah, there's, I'm not sure exactly where. I think the Braille panel might be up on the 4-foot platform. Some of the lower platforms, those panels could be accessed at ground level and also from the platform level. I can send you kind of the link in our catalog that you can literally pick and choose from hundreds of the different types of panels. And as long as they're like panels, there wouldn't be any difference in cost. So you really can kind of pick and choose whichever panels you'd like to incorporate in the design. And then there is room, you know, underneath, I think where the Braille panel is now, if you wanted to put another accessible ground level play panel there, you could do something there. So there's definitely room to move things around within the design to really make it exactly how you want it. But
John, also,
link to Pam.
I'm loving the different colors of the poured rubber, and that's all within budget, correct?
Yes, it is.
And also one other thing, as we're talking about doing a little swapping here and there, is there anything that Creative Recreation has that is like a baseball figure for the surface because it is a baseball park? Just curious.
So we have done specific designs on the surface, and we also have done in other play areas like a climbing bat or a baseball mitt that's made out of like concrete or molded composite material. So if we wanted to look at a little bit more of a design theme or put something in the rubber surface, we absolutely could do that.
The other thing I wanted to add to the group is that I did get in touch with the Lions Club, who was a donor for the current one 20 some odd years ago, and they are very interested if there's a specific thing that we would want that went above and beyond what the companies are offering, that they would consider donating. So just throwing that out there.
John, that's great, Pam. Can you talk a little bit about the warranty and what, in terms of the material, if fading and anything like that? And also, especially that merry-go-round, what is the warranty on that? Because that seems like a very mechanical piece. So that would.
Yes, so the mechanism in the inclusive whirl, I believe, has a 5-year warranty, but I will double check because that's a relatively new part for us. The playground, all the composite material has a fantastic warranty. All the playground posts and any of the fasteners are covered under a 100-year warranty. So basically, as long as the life of the playground is in the ground, the manufacturer will cover it from deterioration of materials and workmanship. Any moving parts like your swings only have a 1-year warranty. And then the plastic in the decks have a 15-year warranty. So 100 years on all your fasteners, your main support post, and your clamps and hardware, 15-year on the decks, and slides, and 1 year for the swing, and I'll double check on the inclusive whirl.
John, how good are the companies about allowing you to enforce those warranties? Are they good about replacing the parts, or is there a long discussion and negotiation to get them to do it?
That is a really good question. It's and having spent my entire career with Miracle, it's never been a problem. The problem lies in the fact that over time, let's say I've seen playgrounds where we did put in 20 years ago or 25 years ago, where the mold, let's look at one of the slides, for instance, the side-by-side slide in the little playground that's up right now. It looks like a little girl dressed in white is coming off the end of the slide. The mold will break down over like a 20 or a 25-year period, in which case the slide wouldn't be covered under warranty anyways. But I have seen that where we can't get an exact replacement part for a slide that's 20 years old or 25 years old. I will say, like, general components and things like that, that's never an issue. The engineering, design, and materials that are being used today are so much superior than what they were in 1989 when I first started selling playgrounds. So, and we're one of the oldest and largest playground manufacturers in the world. And we manufacture all of our own equipment. So that's the long answer, but there's really never any issues.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm back to my shape question again, Pam, because I see that we're looking again at a rectangle. So are we, if we don't have that shape, can we really do this design?
What was that a question for me?
Kind of more for Pam.
Oh, okay. So, well, I would say it would be for John, because the question is that it's not, the site is not a perfect rectangle as your design indicates. There's kind of a little bit of a angle. And I don't know which position, like maybe the angle would be where the smaller 2 to 5 year old unit is right now. So the question is, will this fit in that exact space, not being a rectangle?
Oh, I'm sure that we can work on it and get it to fit. I think we were just looking at one little portion of it being extended. So, once we take exact field measurements, or if you had an actual site drawing, we can certainly do an overlay on the site drawing and show its exact positioning on the site, and move things around. So no, it doesn't necessarily have to be a rectangle.
Thank you.
Does anybody have anything else? Because I think we need to spend some time talking about our final decision. So if you have any last minute questions, it looks like Alyssa does.
Just one final, just a minor question. The taller section directly across from the slide, there's a hole looking down. Is that an open hole, or is there plexiglass, or is there something? I just caught my attention because I thought, at 10 feet high with a hole that goes to nothing, I just got a little nervous.
I think it's plexiglass. It's like one of those like looking through. Yeah, it's
Is
not
it
a
the
whole hole.
plexiglass?
Yeah, so that's a lookout panel, and yeah, it does. It's a real heavy, thick plexiglass material, if you will. The manufacturer makes one that's completely just based out of steel, so there wouldn't be, anything. You can look through the bars, if you will. That just, I don't know why we just kind of, those are pretty common on playgrounds, so we just added it there for the design. But if you wanted a different panel that would still look out, but that wouldn't have that plastic, we certainly could do that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Sorry, I just had one more quick question. For the big slide, John, is it like sectioned where like every few inches there's like a ridge, like a bump and then a bump and then, or is it a solid piece?
So that is a sectional slide that can be configured in any different manner. So if you wanted it to go around in a spiral, you could make it a spiral, or if you wanted it to turn a different direction, you could turn it in a different direction. So it is a sectional slide. If there is a section that breaks, the section could be replaced. But if you wanted something solid, we could do something solid off of that platform. It's entirely up to you.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else before we let John go, so we could start talking about our final thoughts?
John, if we did do a solid slide there, because I know what Sarah's saying, sometimes when I go down them and they're kind of bumpy, it bothers the kids sometimes if there's a little, if it's not as smooth and fast, is if we did a solid one, does it affect the price? And would it be straight or would it also be a little curved?
It would be, I would imagine it would be a little bit curved. It might even be a spiral. I'd have to look to see exactly what's available off a 10-foot deck. And it's likely because it would be solid, the mold that it's coming out of would increase the price of the slide. Probably not a lot, but my guess is it would be a little bit more.
Okay. Do we have what we need from John as of now? Okay, let's let John go. Thank you so much for your time, John. This is really, really super helpful.
Oh,
And
you're quite welcome. And let us know if you have any more questions, and I look forward to your decision.
thank you very much,
John.
John.
Thank you. That was great.
Thank you. Okay, let's have it, ladies. Tell us what your thoughts are.
I'm really torn. I don't know how everyone else feels.
I agree. I tried to get some feedback from the kids at the bus stop today because I feel like they really came at really great options when we're looking at the different populations. Like I kind of look at it as 3 different designs. If we go back to the original big climber in Compan, and then the rope climber, and then the one that we just saw. And I feel like each one, it's like you weigh them all. And I've truly been taking notes this whole time. And it's like when you look at the age 2 to 5, one of them jumps out. When you look at the age 5 to 12, the other one jumps out. So I feel like it's really, really a hard decision.
I agree. It's really the only thing that I was a little bit disappointed about was that new rendering that Summer had sent with the climbing structure. And if we did, so I just want to make sure I understand because I'm having some network issues. I don't know if you can all hear me very well, but the climbing structure with the 2 to 5 structure next to it, if we wanted that climbing structure, would we be able to do that larger 2 to 5, or would it would have to be the smaller one, correct? So if we wanted that larger 2 to 5, what would we have for the larger structure?
I'll just kind of jump in a little, Alyssa, I think, because I kind of was going through the same thing. So if we wanted to keep the 2 to 5, that bigger one that we liked with the rope, she said that that bigger climbing structure would not work with a bigger climbing structure. So if we wanted to keep the bigger climbing structure for the 2 to 5, then we need to keep the rope climber. And if we went with the bigger climber, we get that little one that's like she said, it's just a pretend play hut. So it kind of limits, the climbing structures. If we go with the big climber, it limits the options for the little kids to have a safe climbing place, in my mind. And yet the rope climbing one has awesome for the little kids. So right, they have a great climbing structure, but then the big kids only have the rope.
And I also want to make note that the rope climber is 14 feet high, and the tower with John's platform is 10 feet high, but the roof is 18. So
I will say that part it looks so cool. And when I first saw it almost looks like a trip or whatever, it looks huge. It looks so much fun. I think all the kids would love it. It just feels like, whoa, in such a small space, I just wonder if it's going to feel very jarring, and I don't know. That was my one concern. It felt almost like it'd be great for a bigger park like Cherry Lawn or even McGuan, not McGuan, this is McGuan. To me, it just felt like we're squeezing like a large house on a small plot and we're trying to, I don't know, but that was probably my one thing. I like it, but I don't know if I love it for the space. That makes sense.
Sarah, I agree. I was looking at it from, it's not even just the footprint, it's the airspace that it takes up. It starts to just fill that whole area is so much faster than I thought. And it's kind of sunken in, in certain parts. So, from the rest of the fields. So I don't know if that affects it, but it does feel very busy for that space. Just as a
Would that be a distraction for the baseball games? Like, just curious to know if the kids are playing baseball, would that, would that be, because it is significantly taller? I don't know.
Especially as that one is closest to the field. That's the piece that's the closest to the field. As you know, there's also bushes that they put as a border, but I'm pretty sure that those bushes would never be that tall, that fast. So
I do think that unit could be swapped to the far side though, too. I think that would fit where this taller one is. And so I would keep that in mind. I do think that 5 to 12-year-old kids will be wowed by the tower, in my opinion.
I don't know if we could move it over though, Pam, to that area, unless if we're going back to a rectangle, because I think they would be on an angle because they have to have the U, right? That whole U, whatever space that you have to have for people falling or whatever, or the safety rules. That's why I think that's probably why he put it over there, because it's the longest part of the playground. Unless if he put it on the back where the swing set is and he did it that way. I don't know.
Would we fit? No, he said he would throw in that additional pirouette spinner. Where would that go? Where would we be able to fit that?
Wait, are you talking?
I love the idea of another.
I'll show you. I'm going to show you now.
I'm just confused about your question, Alyssa, because you said he. Are you talking
right
about?
here?
Yeah.
It would go right here.
Can you
Everyone see
describe?
that?
Yeah, what's a pirouette swing? I don't remember that one.
John said he would throw in
It's a spinner.
pirouette spinner.
And it's right where between the swings and the large structure where that beige area is. That's where it would be. You see on the drawing?
Okay.
And that
That's
was
where
the
he was thinking
standing
would be.
unit that could fit like 1, 2, 3 to 4 people, he said, and that would spin.
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a photo of, he said he sent something over, but I haven't seen anything of what that is.
It's a
I can
straight.
show it. Yeah.
She has it. I do like when he said that he could make some of the panels more like usable from the outside, that people, that might be in a wheelchair or unable to get up high in some of these structures. I did like that they can be possibly accessed from the outside of the unit, so that kind of gives more access to other users. And
One thing I'm just kind of making a note of for myself right now is I'm trying to like weigh everything, the pros and negatives, and I'm just keep going back to like the age that's really using that playground right now. And I know that majority of the kids are under 5 using it, and the kids that are a little bit older are either playing the sports or they're doing an iPad while they're watching their sibling play a sport. And I do feel like the youngest like that 2 to 5 uses it a lot from my observation. And I just feel like it's important that we keep in mind that population and that we are trying to think of the, the ADA stuff, but I don't know. I think like I keep going back in my head because they're cool. They're cool designs for either way, but I feel like we really should focus on the younger population because I do think they use it the most.
So then which one do you think, Ruth, does that limit? Which one are you cutting out then based on that? Because
when I think of the the one that I think has X'd out is the original compound one, with the big climber, the one that came back with the net bridge instead of the balance beam. I feel like that one has the least safest options for the little guys. I know she talked about you want to grow with the kids and be challenged higher, but I do feel like we also have to keep in mind there's a ton of population from the 2 to 5 year olds. So I don't know, I've kind of eliminated the big climber, and I'm focusing right now, my thoughts would be on the original, I mean, the rope climber one with all the little kid stuff and the musical instruments. And then the other one would be the one we're looking at right now, is this one. But I just feel like it's a big space. I agree. It's very colorful. I don't know about the neighbors. You know, they like looking out into a park. Are they going to want to look out and see such bright colors? Personally, if I lived there, I wouldn't want that in my backyard. I would want something a little bit more delicate, like the compound feels a little bit more as big and bulky. I don't know. It's definitely a hard decision. I go one way, my kids lean me down the other. Like, I love that rope climber because I see how many kids love that at Bruce Park in Greenwich. All ages are on there. The little guys stay on the bottom, the big ones. That was one of the original things I brought to the group, saying I liked this, and I've watched a ton of kids. That rope climber in mine, really cool, and I love it. But my kids also like the idea of the slide, and they like the colors, and they all picked this one, the creative recreation one, because they just like, it looks fun for them. I don't know. It's a hard decision. I feel like we have to like go out and play on them.
One of
I
the
would
issues we're
suggest-
dealing with is time, and that's the problem. Is already John told us if he ordered it today, we're looking at June, and I would love to have more time on this, but I'm not saying that we're kind of settling. It's just that there are so many things that we're probably never going to get 100% perfection on, and we're just going to have to make the best decision given what our feelings are about the end users of the space. So keeping that in mind, I think if you guys can kind of focus on that and give us your best, what you're thinking, because I think that we do need to move forward, and think, have this start getting it ordered and in play. So, but I do think that what you guys have to say, because your kids are in that right age group, is the most important that we need to hear.
Sarah and Alyssa, do your kids like those rope climbing structures? Have they been on them before?
They do. They like the one at Mead Park. Although I find when we go to Mead, since it has both the rope climber and one of the, the structures with the slides, they tend to spend more time in the structures with the slides. Because Mead Park is kind of a good example because it incorporates a lot of the different things that we're looking in both of these proposals. They spend the majority of the time spinners. There's this one spinner there, or two spinners there, that they spend a great deal of time on. And then the large structure with the slides. The rope climber, they always go on, but they just don't spend a ton of time there. They also have a younger kid area that has the musical elements, which they run to. They have it at homes, at the kindergarten playground as well. I find that they go up to the musical elements, they'll play it for a second, but it never keeps their attention for any duration of time. Whether my older son or my daughter, even when she was very little, all the way up to now she's 5, they just don't keep their attention for very long. They look great. And, I don't have a child that's ADA, so I don't know, if those children would gravitate toward them more. But I know for my own, they like them. They stop and see them, but they don't. So having a larger structure and the spinning items, I feel like would keep my kids occupied for the longest amount of time.
That is great feedback, Alyssa.
Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah, I a lot of what Alyssa said, I agree with. I think, unfortunately, this isn't Mead, and so we don't get the opportunity to have a climber and a rope climber. And I think we also have to keep in mind that, we do have multiple playgrounds, and this isn't a playground I think only people are walking to. People are, I think, choosing to get in their car and go to it. And you do have the choice to go to other playgrounds if it doesn't kind of fit, what your kids' needs are. So, and if this playground had something that my kid loved, I'd go to it more often. I just have no reason. I have cherry lawn in my backyard. So, and I do have twins who are 2, and that this park would be great for them. If it was honestly, any of them. I will say, thinking about the 2 to 5, the which one am I looking at? Creative, John's thing is you have to climb. I think it's similar at on the sound one, where it's a straight up ladder, right, to get to the very top. Am I correct in that? Because everyone's like, to get to the top tower, right? That's not ideal for 2-year-olds. Like, now I have a 3.5-year-old, no problem. So that's the other hard part. I can literally watch what my 2-year-olds can do and see the difference between what my 3.5-year-old can now do. And it is a world of a difference, but just that 1 year apart. So that's where I struggle the most, where I'm like, oh yeah, the rope climbing thing, like my 2-year-olds might try to do it, but like they're not going to get far and they might get bored. But my 3.5-year-old, he's gonna climb up that sucker real quick. So that's kind of where it's such a huge growth spurt between 2 and 5. A 5-year-old can do so much more than a 2-year-old. So I feel like we're kind of getting stuck, and I lean probably more to it being a little bit more challenging, because I think there is enough to entertain a 2-year-old who's just not that capable. The spinny thing, the swings, the little hut thingy, I feel like there's enough. And so for me, I think we have to decide between the climber, the rope climber, and the tall tower. That's just, to me, that's where I'm kind of torn. And all the other things I think will be fine. Like the musical thing, I'm kind of on the same page as Alyssa. My kids are kind of like, on it, but I don't have a kid that I know of yet that has the need for that musical input and the banging and the whatever. So, but if we get rid of that, what could we put in place? I don't know. Another sensory thing other than sound. So, I probably, if I had to make a decision for the group, and my gut says I like the compan one, and I like the net climber. I just do. But I think, like Ruth said, if I was to poll every kid, they would probably pick the tall tower. I'm sure, hands down, that is what every kid, 12 to 2 to, they're just going to be drawn to it. It looks fun. It looks exciting. It looks, just different. We don't have one like that, right? I mean, actually, I guess on the sound, we have is it kind of a double, Susan, right? Is it a double? At Weed? Is it a double?
What did you say? I'm sorry. We had a tower also.
Kind of a double, the tower, is it?
It's pretty tall.
Pretty tall, right?
I was telling Pam and Patty, what we ran into there that was really interesting is we had kids climb on it, on the top of the roof, the first week we had it. And we were like, oh my God, like that was
I never see that. Oh.
And we were freaked out about it. So it wasn't the most ideal situation, because, even though you fall to sand, it's a pretty big fall that you're going to be experiencing. So that's why I asked about the height on both fenders, to know that even though it's not built for that, it's going to be used for that.
Susan, what age kids were climbing on that? Did you see them, and in what age?
They were like literally teenager-y type of people. They were middle schoolers. And
so they weren't 2 to 5.
Back to what Summer says, if they don't have a challenge, they figure out something else that can challenge them to give them that kind of a rush. And that's what they did. Anyway, I know I'm not going to cut anybody off, because this is such an important decision, and I know people are going to have to jump off, but I think that, we should start about what our concluding thoughts are, because I have a meeting tonight at 7:30 with the commission, and I want to give them something that, so that we can make a decision.
Pam, will you put the other one back on for us, the visual of the rope one?
Compan?
Yeah, the compan. The thing I like about the Tubman one that is interesting is that I've been seeing, like now that I'm on the playground thing again, it looks like the ones that people are building now are very like kind of more modern, like more, I felt like the creative recreation one is very traditional. Like everybody's doing that. That's what we've been doing for eons, like the slide, da da da. And I felt like this felt more hip, not hip, I shouldn't say that because like I'm old, but it felt more current and like maybe looking at, sorry, I'm sorry. And so I want to make sure, maybe this is the first one we kind of do and it's a little more edgy because we're doing something for younger kids and kids with, limited mobility. So I felt like even though this wasn't perfect, I felt like it felt very new and current and something that kids they might say, I want to go to McGuan because they have the music and this cool net climber that nobody else has in Darien yet. So I like the design for that reason.
Yeah,
And-
the Scandinavian designs have a sleekness to them that are, I feel like they're gaining popularity. See them more in the city too. When do we need to, if you said you had a meeting tonight, Susan,
Yes.
it would be great if I would love to be able to print these out and do one final poll of my bus stop today, just to kind of get their feedback. If I have time to do that at the 3:30 bus stop.
Yeah, sure, you can do it. It's just that the only thing is that you're probably going to be polling elementary school kids, and it sounds like this playground is geared towards like 2 to 5, which is more preschoolers. So that's the only challenge, like thinking about it like that.
We have a mix.
We're also
Because we have older kids, we have preschoolers preschool siblings who come along as well. So we have families that
so
have
you could
the
get their
elementary school
viewpoint.
all the way down to preschool.
That would be great. We're also, Curtis wasn't able to come and he's inundated at work, but I'm trying to get some of his feedback about, the accessibility of these designs and hopefully he'll have something soon. But I just wanted to get a sense of the meeting so that if we do make a decision and, you give us this feedback, that it's something that you're going to support us going to the commission on, because I don't want to be there and be like, oh yeah, it was definitely Compan. And then later on, everybody's like, no, all the kids liked creative recreation, and it's just, I think we need to kind of be headed in a direction that we're going to probably go towards.
I think also too, Compan is the only one that gave us that little spinner, the one that we know that everybody likes. I know Creative was doing something similar, but it was not that bucket spinner, which I think they have at Cherry, which we know the kids love. Other thing that sorry,
But you can do a bucket.
What'd you say?
You can do, we could swap out a bucket. That's not really a big deal. If John was here right now, he'd say you could do whatever you want. If you didn't want 2 buckets, we'll do 2 buckets.
Thank you for
So that's what
confirming that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I also think I really want to zone in on what Alyssa said about the time spent, the kids' time spent in the elevated unit, because that is important when they get bored with a few things, and again, Ruth's comment about the colors can change too. So you don't have to have the wild, colorful poured in play either. I think it really comes down to, in my opinion, the kids being engaged longer than a shorter time. So that's my 2 cents.
I agreed with a lot of what Ruth said. I thought that was very helpful in terms of, running to this for the musical items, but then not spending that much time. And, even though it might not be that expensive to replace some of the, banging on the drums things.
You're muted, Patty.
Sorry, was I muted the whole time?
Yes.
All right, I'll just say I concur with what Pam just said and what Ruth said, where they spend the most time. And so I like both designs. The high neck climber worries me much more than a taller tower, because we will put up signs at that park saying no climbing on the roof. That, and to me, I'm there a lot. I've been going there a lot the last 9 months since we've been on the committee, and it's 2 to 5 year olds. I recognize there are some older kids that come, but I'd rather see things where the younger kids are really going to be able to play on it. That's my 2 cents. The other thing is, just to say it, I think it's really important. Again, it's not that I don't like the compound design or Sumner, but this is a built in America. I'm not pitching the built in America thing versus the Norwegian, but when I specifically ask about supply chain issues, if it's coming from overseas, those items are coming on ships that are also delayed versus coming in via trucks from Missouri.
Good point.
The more I go back to it, the more I keep leaning towards the creative design. Even though I love the more contemporary, I love that, but I'm just thinking for practicality purposes and what the kids will go for. But I can do a poll when I go for pickup at preschool as well. And I can pull, and a lot of the preschool families have very, my daughter's in pre-K, but there's a lot of families there who have new babies, and 2 and 3 year olds who would be I think our target audience. So I can do a good poll when I go there, and then also do the bus stop, just to see if like other people's impressions are falling in line where my gut is telling me.
So
Pam, one other
let me just
point.
get a read of the meeting real quick, because I think, we're going to get some feedback from Melissa, but I need to get a better read. It seems like, people like compound, but now it's creative recreation. I want to just make sure that's what I'm feeling. If that's true, or not true, let me know, because, I think we need to have some direction that we know we're headed.
Hands down, I like both. I just think that the kids are going to gravitate toward creative.
I concur.
I agree with that as well. I think I've done the poll as well with the kids on the street, and they all really, they all pick the creative. I think it's exciting for them. It's what they know. And I just think it gives a lot to offer. And I agree the musical part as well. Like, I'm afraid the kids are going to stand on them and jump on them, because they're going to be looking for more. The bigger kids are going to be looking for more to do. And I think that's going to make a wear and tear on the musical instruments. So I think in a nutshell, the best age appropriate thing in my vote would be creative.
I'd also like to add that there's all new apartments going there too, that are going to have a flood of new kids and families.
Sarah, were you going towards creative?
I mean, yes, aesthetically, it's not my choice, but yes, it is. It's when I saw it, and I just knew the kids were going to love it. That being said, and this is a total side note, but I do think though that since we do really like that where Compan is going, I do think we should try to do something like this maybe then at one of the other playgrounds, because I just don't want them all to look the same like they do right now. They all look like they're exact. Here's your slide, here's your climbing thing, and that's honestly the reason not to go to any other playgrounds. Everyone just goes to the one that's closest to them. So that being said, and this is totally random, but I was just at Cherry yesterday, and I'm always trying to think kind of like the gazebo, where the whole history about it, and trying to think for like the next generation and people who are living here later. I know we have a very big passionate group of people in this town about trees, and one of the things, and I'm sure you guys all know this, that tree that is at Cherry Lawn, I do not know how old it is, that climbing tree, kids love that tree. I would pay money to have that tree in my backyard for my kids to climb on. if we could just kind of like see the future and try to plant things like that at playgrounds, so that in whatever 10, 20, 50 years, there's kids who are getting to like that thing has outlasted probably all the play equipment that we have ever planted, like built in all these playgrounds. So that's just my other thing where I'm thinking about this playground, that, you know, maybe we plant things like that around the, you know, the playground area, so that whether the playground changes in 20 years, the trees are kind of another thing for kids to climb onto, not just looking pretty, but they actually serve a purpose, which I don't know what type of tree that is, but it is the best tree ever. And everyone calls it the climbing tree. I mean, everyone's like, oh, let's go over to the climbing tree. And you can see 5, 7 kids all vying to get on. And it is just, it's great. So anyways, that's my 2 cents.
We have planted six new trees at McGuan. Just to
like that
tell
though.
you.
I don't know what species that is, but that tree
I'm
is.
not certain.
Yeah, that tree's been there
like,
forever. My college son's been climbed on that, and we
yeah,
did get a
like, I
couple
mean,
of
and it's
pictures
still,
many years
I mean,
ago.
it is awesome. So anyway, so that's just kind of where I
It's
think
like
we can
totally, probably kind of like a scrubby tree, to be honest with you, but it serves a
Probably
purpose, so
was.
that's fine.
Anyway,
Sarah,
so
to your point, Sarah, is that also let's reflect if you know we are going the way of creative, that we still consider different keep an eye open for innovative structures for our other playgrounds. And I do think that we should all do a road trip to Mead together. We've been talking about it. We might have gone individually, but I do think as we start to look down the line for the other ones, that we do some playground visits of other places. Thank you.
And along what Sarah said too, I think Baker, you know, it's more like in my mind, more like bird's nesty, right? So I love the idea of doing something more natural and ropes and making it like, oh, that one's known for this one's known for that. I agree. I don't like all the big plastic structures everywhere. And I think reflecting on like neat, kind of like what it looks like at Baker. It's very earthy there, very woodsy. So if we can go along the lines of maybe a rope structure there, which is still kind of close to McGuane, it can offer something similar but different.
I agree.
So it sounds like we're creative heavy now, which is fine. But I think that even if we're going that direction, I think we're going to need people to finalize, like to tweak it in order to get it into the system quickly. Like the panels he talked about, possibly switching things out to like have 2 sides of the panels be interactive. We talked about the slide being something that we might change. And even the color, and also things like that. Is there anybody on the committee that would be willing to kind of drill this, like help finalize what our order will look like? Because I think that's important too, in terms of making sure that's done in a timely manner. Is there anybody on the committee that has time to do that? Like if the color's fine, it's fine, but it sounded like some people had situations about the slide, and we had talked about swapping out some of the panels. So, you know, because of the manufacturing timing, you know, we need to get that finalized sooner than later.
I could work with John on that and then get everybody samples. I can get right on it.
So then are we going to have, like, how do we do that? Because, you know, we want to, you know, if the commission says, you know, you guys are on the right track, this is great, we agree with you, you guys spent a lot of time on this, I want to get this done ASAP, because every day, I mean, I'm really nervous because now we talked about demoing that playground in November. And let's say he says late May, it's going to be June. And next thing you're going to have no playground for 6 months. And that's going to be horrific.
I think I talked to the select.
We're going to have to figure out how to make that happen and to bridge that gap. And it might mean that we have to figure out where there's money from another place, or we're going to have to work on that, because 6 months is a long time not to be with the playground. And so I'm not going to make that time any longer by prolonging our decision making.
Right. So I concur, Susan. 6 months is a long time, and I've been asking each every other meeting, has anybody talked to the selectmen? And nobody hadn't. So I called Monica yesterday and I asked her flat out, I said, this working group's been tremendous. We've had 3 vendors. We've now narrowed it to 2. We've asked them for a revision. It's great because it's the ARPA money. So we're not asking you guys for money. I said, but the one concern, my personal concern is, and some others, is the 6-month gap. How are you with that? And because we can save $20,000 if our Parks and Rec guys can do that. And she had big concerns about that, but she was going to ask around. So who knows, Pam, maybe Public Works and Parks and Rec could do something together and that would help us. But I think based on what we're hearing, my opinion, but based on what we're hearing from John, that it wouldn't happen until June, that would give us the opportunity to get it done in the spring if we can do it. I know how busy our Parks and Rec guys are, they are, but if we can plan it in advance and say, we're going to need X number of days to pull this up in between Public Works and Parks and Rec, could we get that done in the spring? And then we would not have that long gap. So that's my feedback to the group and doing my due diligence yesterday, because that was a big concern of mine.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now that our crew cannot do it in the spring. Sandy was hands down. It's a small
Maybe
crew.
Public Works can do it, Pam. Maybe Public Works can do it, and if Monica's really not comfortable with it, then maybe they go to the Board of Finance and say, can we get X amount of money to pull this up? Or to allow these guys, like, here's our 175 to do a new playground. But the pulling out of the playground wasn't necessarily part of that cost. What do you think?
I can't answer that. I can't answer Ed Gentile's crew and the time that they would need to pull that out. But what I will,
Patty, what I'll do is at tonight's meeting, just because this is not something I want to keep everybody on for, is that I will bring that up, that concern, and that now that we found out the supply chain is going to take longer than we anticipated, that we don't want to be without a playground that long. And Pam's crew cannot do it. So we will, as a commission, need to think about ways that if it's finding money within our budget or in town, or whatever we can do to do it out with an outsource. Because I'm thinking that Public Works is pretty tapped out too, and I wouldn't want to put the onus on another department. So I think we're going to have to make a trade-off here. It's definitely going to be money, I think. So let's bring it up at the meeting tonight, because I think that's more of a commission level discussion about where that can happen, not here. Does that make sense? And it's great that you got the feedback back from Monica. I mean, it was worst case scenario, and now it's gotten kind of worse in terms of the timing. So I think we are in a good, I think in terms of that new building has new residents moving in already. The Heights building, the apartments there, that, we do need to be mindful of making sure that there are public amenities for our newest residents. So we'll figure it out. Okay. But don't worry about that piece right now. But let's get, the only thing we could do in front of us is making sure that we have an option to present to the commission, and that people were willing to fine tune the design so that it gets to an ordering stage. That's really what I'm concerned about for this meeting. And tonight, I'll bring it up when I do my report and gauge what our commission is, because now we're looking at capital and other ways that we need to spend money for the town and our parks and beaches. So we might have to add something in or figure something out. Okay. Is that okay, Patty?
Yeah. I mean, capital, you're going to be talking about capital. That's for the next following year.
I know.
You wouldn't be pulling
but
that
I'm just
out.
saying, we're going to be in that mindset of spending money, and 20,000 is a lot of money, but it's not like a 6-figure ask. So I'm just saying
That's
that
what
when
I'm saying.
we have to
Maybe that's-
consider the expenses of the whole town for our parks and beaches.
That's
and
what
even if
I'm
it's
saying.
$20,000,
That could be a
it's-
consideration. We were lucky enough to get 175 for McGuan. that would have been coming out of our capital budget for next year. So instead, can we get 20 grand to rip it up? Because this was all that. That's just
Yeah,
something.
but you're right. We need to not, it's not necessarily the capital discussion we're having because this money doesn't get given to us till later in, and it wouldn't even help, right? But maybe we can, I noticed that there are situations when I was at the RTM meeting, you kind of replenish a fund. If there's money that we need to take out of this year, I don't know, we'll figure something out, Patty. That's my point.
I do just want to say though, Susan, the reality is if it's June, we hope it'll be sooner, but if it is June, then we have to think about the plan B of it really going in the fall, being installed in the fall.
Sorry, I was just going to say that too.
Even if it's
I
the
think
fall,
Patty's right.
though,
And
guys, which is fine, it still means that we need to have money to get that playground ripped up. Because right now, all our plans are like to the gills at 175, right? And that's the ARPA money. But then Parks and Rec needs to, either it's our money in our, in one of our budgets to make up that difference, or if there's internal sources of to do the work. We don't know.
Yeah,
But
so
let's
I
figure it out.
agree with you, just focus on for tonight. You're going to focus on, we went from 3 to 2. We had great designs, lots of presentations, and then went back and forth and then narrowed it down to this one for all of these reasons. The one last thing I would add in about creative, because I do like both of them a lot, Pam, and thank you for all your hard work. You have shade structures in the creative also. You have the 2 shade structures, and it got so hot there in August, so I think that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, sounds
One
great.
last
Well, I
thought.
won't keep you guys any longer. So I'm gonna feel free to email anything until tonight, and I'll try to share what I can with the commission. But I'm gonna put forth creative recreation, and that if they're okay with it, we're gonna meet either off, in subgroups of the committee to make sure that an order does get placed ASAP, but that we also have the situation about the timing of the demo and when we're actually going to get things in place, right? So we'll mention that too.
One last
Okay.
public comment. One last
Yes.
public comment is that we do have another playground very close by at Baker. So it's not as if we remove something that there's no other playground in town. You have Cherry Lawn, you have Weed Beach, you have Baker. So we're very fortunate for that. And we can put up a design that will show what's coming to keep the excitement at Wigwam. That's my stand on that. I just wanted to publicly say that.
Yeah, but let's just talk. Yeah, we'll present it. And I think Lori had at one point said that we would do a public hearing or public input session. This is our chair of the commission. I'm sorry, guys. Either way, we don't have to demo right away. But we need to order the materials sooner. So we can the plan is to order the materials, and then the second part of it is to figure out how the demo happens. And if it's internal, we'll have to deal with the time, but we won't need to know that for at least another month, right? Because if your guys do it, they're doing it in a month, right? So let's give ourselves the next few weeks to figure out what we can do to keep the playgrounds online as much as we can and go from there. Okay? Thank you guys for your time. I'm sorry it took so long, but this was very important, and you guys played a really important role in helping with this because this is hard. And of course, now we have 2 more to go. But at least we got good practice on this one, and this was the most important one in terms of the surfacing was going to need to be replaced. So this was important that we do this one first. But anyway, thanks again for your time, and we'll report back when we hear what the commission has to say. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies. You're all amazing.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Oh.